meet and greet, so to speak, Rosemary Drake, who is running for representative of the 39th House District. Before we jump into that, there were a couple of things I wanted to mention. That the Franklin County Democrats meet every fourth Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the Franklin County Annex Small Meeting Room. And then tomorrow in the Franklin County Annex Large Meeting Room, we're getting together to try to do some legwork, paperwork, sending out postcards and mailing list for the upcoming elections. And put that on your calendar. That's the primary is August 1st. And then on July 7th from 3 to 5 p.m., there is a meet and greet afternoon session with Gloria Johnson from 3 to 5 p.m. at Winchester City Park. I believe it is the third, or whatever they call those annexes, the third annex. I'm not sure what they call the little buildings, but at any rate, she's there, or she will be there, and I understand that she's not big on trying to do stump speeches, but she would much rather meet and greet the people literally and find out what individuals think of what's important to Tennessee and our district. So we'll get on with our morning session with Rosemary, and hope everybody has a wonderful day. As you were told earlier, might get up to triple digits today. Let's hope not, but let's hope for some rain. So good morning, Rosemary. This is Bob Feiklowitz. Let's kick things off. Since I don't know how many people know you or don't know you, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your childhood, family, those types of things. How did you get into politics?
Thanks, Bob. It's good to be here this morning and talk to the folks in Franklin County and surrounding areas. First, I want to make clear, not everybody knows what a House district is based on the number. District 39, the seat that I'm running for, consists of all of Franklin County and all of Marion County. So it's real easy the borders are very easy to figure out. It was slightly different in years past, but it's now currently all of Franklin County and all of Marion County. So if you're a registered voter in one of those counties, or you get out to register before the deadline that's coming up, you'll be able to vote in that election. I am a native Tennessean. I was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, when my dad was studying at UT Knoxville on the GI Bill. But shortly after my birth, they decided I was baby number 2 of 3 girls. They decided to return to Old Hickory, Tennessee, which is just outside of Nashville, where both of my parents grew up. And so I grew up until age 12 in Old Hickory, surrounded by a wonderful community, and was lucky enough to have all of my grandparents and a couple of my great-grandparents involved in my life. As I said, I'm the second of 3 girls. When I was 12, we moved to Huntsville, Alabama, and I lived there for 6 years for junior high and high school. And those are the only 6 years that I've not been a resident of the state of Tennessee. Once I graduated from high school, I went back to Tennessee, up the road to Sewanee, to the University of the South for college, where I earned a degree in American Studies. And then I took a year off between school and then went to law school at Vanderbilt University School of Law. And I practiced law for over 30 years. And I also have done a few other things to breaks occasionally from the practice of law. And for a few years, I returned to Sewanee and worked for the university managing housing. The university owns quite a lot of housing for faculty, graduate students, and staff. And so in the late 90s, I came back and did that for a while. I also have ran a home renovation business for a while in Nashville. I practiced law in Tennessee and in the District of Columbia. I was licensed in both places. and did a variety of law practice. Early in my career, I was a lobbyist for the Tennessee League of Women Voters, which is a nonpartisan group that tries to encourage good government. And as a student at Sewanee, my final year, my final semester, I spent in Nashville as an intern with the legislature. I was assigned to the Tennessee Senate Finance, Ways and Means Committee. So between that internship and then later serving as a lobbyist, not just for the League of Women Voters, but also some volunteer lobbying work, I got a pretty good idea of how the legislature works. But things are night and day different now between what they were then and what they are now. At that time, it was a divided government in terms of political parties. We had a Republican governor, Lamar Alexander, and we had a Democratic majority in the House with Ned Ray McWhorter, then was the Speaker of the House. And then we had a Democratic majority in the Senate. John Wilder was lieutenant governor. The interesting thing that they did in the Senate Finance, Ways and Means Committee, is that the chair of that committee was a Democrat and the vice chair was a Republican. And the two of them shared an office suite and worked together collaboratively on legislation. And so I got a good look at what bipartisanship and respect and exchange of ideas can bring to the political process. And I think we have gone astray in getting to the point where we have a supermajority. I think the supermajority is bad no matter which party is in that supermajority. Of course, I'd be a little bit more happy if it were a Democratic supermajority.
Understandable.
But when you have a supermajority, there's no incentive to listen to the other side. And you don't get the exchange of ideas that you get when there's a free discussion of different points of view. Our current legislature stifles opinions that are different from that supermajority, to the point of not even having the respect to listen to the concerns of those who lost their children and loved ones in the Covenant School shootings. So I think it's time for a shift to occur. That shift may occur over a long period of time, but we need to bring in new ideas and listen to one another, and move to a system where there are representatives who are heard from all points of view. What else can I tell you? I currently live in Sewanee, near Jump Off area. I moved back here 5 years ago, so this is my third time to live in this district. I love it here. I love the people here. The land is beautiful. I retired from the practice of law 5 years ago, and I have been having a great time living on my land. I've got 20 acres. I've been learning timber framing, how to harvest lumber. I keep bees, and more recently I've become a puppy raiser, a volunteer puppy raiser for an organization called Dogs Incorporated. It used to be called the Southeastern Guide Dogs. They're located in Florida, but they have a wonderful facility where they breed and train service dogs. And so they have volunteer puppy raisers all over the country who raise future service dogs in their first year to 14 months. So I have a new family member, Tilly, who I'm raising as a puppy, and she'll return next year next summer to school, and her skills will be assessed, and she'll be trained for duties based upon what her skills are. So it would be wonderful if I got to bring Tilly to the floor of the state legislature so
that would be great.
she could meet lawmakers and the public.
I had the pleasure of meeting Tilly the other night when we had our monthly meeting, and Tilly is a beautiful. Is she a black lab?
She is a black Labrador Retriever, 100%. Yes.
Absolutely beautiful dog, friendly. She just wanted to greet everybody. So it's a real pleasure to have met Tilly, and I hope she, I guess, trains well. I'd find it hard to give her up after 14 months or whatever period of time it is. So I congratulate you for taking on that effort. One of the things that Helen, who normally does this show, had mentioned that bees tend to have their own little political setup, and she was just curious. How does that, I guess, track with what we're seeing nowadays? Because it's definitely not bipartisan in any stretch of imagination.
Well, bees are definitely a different culture than human culture. They work together very collaboratively. There's a division of duties. When bees are first hatched, they're house bees, and they take care of raising the young. And as they grow older, they switch to other duties and become field bees or guard bees or undertaker bees that remove the bees who've died or any kind of debris that ends up in the hive. So there are all kinds of little tasks that bees have. They're predominantly female. The worker bees are all female. The queen is female, and then the drones are male. And the drones have only one purpose, and that is to fertilize the eggs of the queen. They die as a result of the act of inseminating the queen. They are the ones that don't sting. Once the time of year has passed when most of the mating flights of the queen take place, after that time of year has passed, those drones, the ones who haven't mated and already died as a result of the mating process, are kicked out of the hive by the rest of the bees. They also have their own heat and air system. By using their wings, they're able to keep the brood and the queen cool or keep her warm in the winter. So they're very fascinating creatures.
Yeah, they've got some really interesting dynamics going on there. I didn't know half of that stuff, and I guess in my case, I'm glad I'm not a drone.
Right.
Not much of a lifespan there. So, I mean, that's all very, very interesting. I'm glad you were able to share that with us. But I guess part of what we wanted to talk about today are some of the politics, unfortunately, of what's going on here. Music and art education are under attack in Franklin County. Swanee and Cowan Elementary will no longer offer music in favor of a program called STREAM. And I actually had to do some research to find out what STREAM was all about. And typical of today, STREAM is an acronym that talks about a multiplicity of educational processes. So could you tell us a little bit about what your feelings are about the STREAM program? Explain it maybe a little bit.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about it. I do know that more people are familiar with the term STEM, which is for science, technology, engineering, and math. And then STREAM adds in reading and arts.
Right.
So they try to develop programs that pull in all those various disciplines together, which seems like kind of a fascinating idea to me, but also challenging to create a curriculum for that sort of program. and my understanding about the loss of music and arts education is that it's a symptom of the national teacher shortage, that there are not enough certified teachers in any subject, and that they've had to divert some of the music teachers to being able to teach other subjects in addition to music and arts because of the shortage of finding music teachers, shortage of having teachers for other disciplines as well, and putting teachers in a position of needing to be multitaskers and teach a variety of topics at one point, at any one point. So that's my understanding of the situation. I think as far as the relationship to state politics and state policy, the concern is that underlying problem of teacher shortages. And I think in a state like Tennessee, where I believe we're ranked 45th in spending for public schools, then we're not going to be doing a great job of recruiting the teachers that we need. So I don't think we're at risk of overspending on public schools, and it's my position that we should not be diverting public dollars from public schools to private entities via vouchers. Our public dollars need to go to public schools, and we need to address the problems of public schools with that money. It just doesn't make sense to take a pot of money and send it somewhere else when you've got a shortage in what you're already trying to provide to students.
I would presume with that remark that if the school vouchers came up again, that you would vote against it. I understand.
I will vote against it, and I believe the majority of voters in the state and in our district oppose school vouchers. If you look at what has happened in other states that have voucher programs, they have found that the people who primarily benefit are those who are already financially well off enough to send their children to private schools. So it's not going to serve the goals that it's intended to serve, and it's also become a budget buster for some of the states that have experimented with voucher programs, and we certainly don't need that. My understanding is that my expected opponent does support vouchers, or at least has in the preliminary stages of voucher consideration, and the legislature supported it. And I don't think that's the majority position of those in our district.
I'm not sure how much of a lightning rod the school vouchers are. I'm not sure if the general public, I guess, maybe pays enough attention to it. I don't know if that's the right term. It's a difficult, I guess, decision from a school administration standpoint, how to handle the curriculum and draft new teachers and those types of things. And I don't see the voucher program necessarily adding to that. It would almost seem like it would be a distraction from that. I don't know, is that an accurate, I guess, representation?
Well, I do think, there's certainly a lot of people don't pay attention to any kind of political issue, but I do think teachers are aware of the proposals for vouchers, and it's, to me, almost a slap in their face when they're already laboring at lower pay than what they might receive with the same educational levels in a private sector job. Instead, they've gone into teaching, usually because they're devoted to children and their education. and they're sacrificing their own financial well-being to teach, and then to see the state propose, well, let's take some of this money that we would have spent on public schools and encourage people to send their kids to private schools. I think that's wrong.
Obviously, there's teachers at the private schools. Is there I don't know, and you might not know the answer to this, but is there a significant pay difference between public school teachers and the private school teachers?
Well, often private school teachers actually start out at lower salaries than public school teachers, but they're not required to be certified.
There is
Right.
a great,
Yeah.
I guess, differentiator, to say the least. I didn't
Yeah,
realize
the private
that
schools don't. There are many requirements that public schools have to meet that private schools do not have to meet.
I wasn't
And of
aware
course,
of that.
public schools, we're obligated to provide an education to every child, and private schools are not.
Correct. And that's a shame. I mean, public education is what drives the nation eventually. So the more kids are able to learn in school, the better they are to be a productive citizen, for lack of a better term. And I know that when I was in school, we used to have civics lessons and some of those types of classes, and I understand that that's not a practice any longer. So those are things that I guess at my age, I look back and say, where did the train get off the track here? And are what kids receiving really a well-rounded education nowadays? And with the teacher shortage, I can't imagine that being accurate. And the fact that Tennessee is 45th out of 50 in terms of funding for teaching, that's not a good position to be in.
It's not.
So and I don't know what we can do to get past it.
And if we're not teaching civics, we need to be teaching civics.
Absolutely.
I remember well my 9th grade civics class and had a really wonderful teacher, and I'm sure that was part of the roots of what led me to eventually become a lawyer.
Sure.
And actually led to my first political involvement, which was when I was in high school, and I had started reading the newspaper early on, and I'd sit and lay it out on the floor and get on my hands and knees and read it. And I noticed there was an article about an upcoming Youth in Government Day where youth were to take a spot in government, the mayor, the police chief, various jobs, and shadow the person who actually held that job for the day. And I thought, oh, that's great.
That sounds like
But as
fun.
I continued on the article, I became disappointed because it was only for boys. Of course, this was in the 1970s. And it was set up to be a partnership with Boy Scouts. Of course, now there are girls in the Boy Scouts, but back then that was not the case. So I was in Girl Scouts, so I went to my troop and I said, look at what they're doing, but they're not allowing girls to participate. And so I sat down and wrote a letter to the editor, and I had all my troop members sign it and sent it in to the Huntsville Times, and they published that letter to the editor. My father came home from work and said, "Why didn't you tell me about this?" All the people at work were asking him about it. And this letter his
good for you.
spunky daughter had written. And they changed the policy, not that year, but the following year. They set it up so that
Girls could be involved.
girls could be involved. And in the article the following year, there was a quote that said, "And if it's a girl mayor, it's a girl mayor." So fast forward, that was a long time ago, but
Sure.
fast forward, the Tennessee legislature in 2024 has only 15% female representatives.
Well, that's not too much.
No, that's not.
Not too much.
That's
Not
terrible.
exactly what we call parity.
Not exactly.
So I guess maybe we'll have to change that a little bit. Of course, now Iris is a
Right.
female.
It doesn't change by my race, but
Right,
certainly
yeah.
by others.
But yeah, I looked, and I'm a recent transplant to Tennessee. So when I was doing a little background checking for this program, I was noticing that the disparity, historical disparity, I think it was started in 1982 up until, I don't know what the exact year is, but there were 8 years of Democratic majority in the legislature, and then the following 8 years it was Republican. What I noticed as being different was in the Democrat years, it was a little bit closer to, I guess, an equal split. I don't know that it's equal, but I mean, there wasn't the disparity
Not a
that
super.
there is now.
There was never a super majority.
And the supermajority, as we've seen both nationally and locally, can be a problem. So I'm hoping that some of those things will change, and maybe the next 8 years we'll get back towards a little bit more of an equal balance between the parties and get a little bit more partisanship between them, a little bit less animosity and those types of things that seem to be pervasive nationally as well as locally. So let's jump to a different topic here. We've talked about the politics end of it on a individual level. We're fighting the issue of the food tax, and I'm sensitive to it because I never had it before when I lived in Ohio, and now I'm experience it. Now I'm single, so I live alone, so my food budget is nowhere near what like a family of four would be. So I'm paying, maybe $7 to $10 every time I go to the store in terms of a food tax. But I have to think that somebody that's a family of four has got to be paying $20, $25 in terms of the food tax.
It's a significant burden on people to pay a sales tax on food. And actually, there are only 13 states now that have a sales tax on food. So we're in a minority in that regard. And I think in these times of inflation in particular, it would be very helpful if we remove the sales tax on food. And, of course, enabled to do that, we'd have to replace the revenue from other sources. And I think the first source to look at is a revision of our franchise and excise tax system, which we're discovering allows some huge corporations to get off without paying any of those taxes. Yeah. Whereas, on the other hand, the mom and pop down the street are paying for a significant part of their household budget in sales tax on food.
Tax on food, yes.
And if you look at rural counties like in my district, you have lower incomes than what you might find in other parts of the state. And so I think it's particularly burdensome for moderate income, low income families to pay that sales tax on food. If you've got $1,000 take home pay and you spend $400 on food instead of $320 or so without the tax, that's a significantly more burdensome than if you have a take home pay of $10,000 a month, and that difference of $80 or $90 more and
chump change to that person.
It's not going to matter. But it's particularly difficult now for low and moderate income people to make ends meet. It's a very regressive form of taxation. And just in general, having experience with the franchise and excise tax from running my own businesses in the past, boy, are they difficult to prepare your returns. Mm-hmm. As an attorney, I had occasion to represent people on some tax matters for federal income tax. And so I had training in preparation of those forms and on the law related to federal tax. And a lot of people find that tedious, but boy, it's nothing in comparison to the franchise and the excise tax returns. They just tangle up your brain.
Yeah.
So I think we need some reform in that area, and we need to remove some loopholes.
Absolutely. I mean, we all hear it over and over and over again about the major corporations that are paying next to no tax. And I think that's categorically unfair to the American population, whether it be on the state basis or on a national basis. Taxes is what provides the income, so to speak, to operate the country. Government is necessary to take care of roads and general public type of issues that the individual can't do on their own. So the taxation issue is definitely significant. The food tax is just a real pain in the butt, to say it nicely. And I'm hoping that over the next year we can make some moves and efforts to try to eliminate that food tax. That would be wonderful if we could actually do that.
Some other proposals that have been out there about how to replace that income include increasing the cigarette tax. And it has also occurred to me that if we legalize marijuana in this state, that would be another tax source as well. That would be a suitable replacement for some of what the grocery taxes on groceries bring in. And I was kind of surprised to see a poll that showed there's a majority support for legalization of marijuana in Tennessee.
That's interesting.
Not just medical marijuana, but recreational marijuana as well.
It's I have a friend that lives in Colorado, and his son has a marijuana business, I guess, I don't know what else you would call it. And it just brings in money hand over fist. So if they could use that to be able to replace the food tax, that would be great. I think one of the things that I have a little bit of a problem with is like with the cigarette tax or like the marijuana tax, that it targets specific audience. And somebody that doesn't smoke or doesn't use marijuana is not contributing to the, I guess, tax burden, so to speak. So that'll be an interesting...
I don't have any problem with the sin taxes, is what they're called. But then I've never been a smoker or a toker, so it won't affect me. So,
well, I smoked for years and years and years, and nowadays my son still smokes, and it's like I see the cost of a carton of cigarettes, and it's like, I'm sorry, I can't believe that. Why in the name of God are you even trying to smoke when it costs that much? It's like everything else.
One of the toughest addictions, so they say.
Yes, it is. Let's talk a little bit about, since it's an addiction, takes us a little bit into healthcare type issues. And one of the things that's come up is the expansion of Medicaid that Tennessee seems to avoid doing. And they don't want to expand Medicaid. And I guess we're losing a lot of money to neighboring states as a result of that. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, actually, there's only 9 states now that have not expanded Medicaid. And I think it's important that we get into the nuts and bolts of what we mean when we talk about expanding Medicaid, because I think there's confusion about what's Medicaid, what's Medicare, what's Obamacare, what are we talking about here? When Obamacare was, or the Affordable Care Act is the official name, and everybody refers to it now as Obamacare. When that was passed, initially the provision was that people who didn't qualify for Medicaid because they had too much assets or income would immediately fall into the Affordable Care Act system and be able to obtain health insurance under that program and receive a subsidy for that. But that portion of the regulations related to Obamacare was struck down by the Supreme Court. So it became a situation where the states had to accept Medicaid expansion. So in states that have not accepted Medicaid expansion, we have people who are very low income who qualify for Medicaid, and in Tennessee that's TennCare. And then we have people, I looked up the, let me see if I have my notes. I looked up the income levels now where you can start qualifying for
Medicaid.
Obamacare. If you have to make $15,000 above if you're a single person, or $31,000 for a family of four to qualify for Obamacare. Meaning, you can get subsidies if you make an amount above those levels. You can sign up for health care and you get a subsidy based on your income. But the strange thing is that if you make less than that amount, like if you make $14,000 and you're a single person, you qualify for no subsidy because you're not eligible for Medicaid and you're not eligible for the subsidies under Obamacare, and that leaves a gap of people who are not covered by either program. And so when we talk about the expansion of Medicaid, what we're talking about is closing that gap between those who are eligible for TennCare Medicaid in Tennessee and those who are eligible for subsidies under Obamacare. And so those people cannot affordably purchase health insurance because they don't get any subsidy and the cost is prohibitive. So we have a whole population of people who don't have health insurance, therefore don't get preventative care or regular examinations. So when they go to the doctor, it's at the point where it's reached an emergency. They're not getting diagnosed with problems that are treatable early enough. And then when they go for emergency care, then a different bucket of money has to subsidize the hospital or a health care provider who's taking a loss because that person can't pay.
Can't pay, right.
So the consequence of not having Medicaid expansion is that we have a population of people who are not getting good health care. We're having where we've lost more hospitals in rural areas in Tennessee than I think in any other state because they can't take those losses from uninsured patients. Right. And we also, the Medicaid expansion, if we did it, would be covered by federal dollars. Those are federal dollars that we pay via our taxes.
Sure.
So right now, we're paying those taxes, and it's going to other states that do have Medicaid expansion. That's surrounding states. That's any other state in the country that's got it. Medicaid expansion is where our tax dollars are going. So it's a loss all around, and we need to look again at Medicaid expansion and move in that direction.
My presumption again is that you're going to vote for Medicaid expansion.
Yes, yes.
And I mean, that's almost like a no-brainer. Why in the name of heaven would we not do it? I'm familiar with people that don't have insurance. When I had my own business, I had a service guy that his teeth were horrible. He was sick all the time, and I tried to convince him to, get health care. Get a dentist. Take care of your teeth, which they say is oftentimes a real cause of a lot of illness. He just said, "I don't have the money. I can't do it." And, I mean, that's just absolutely horrible because then it becomes an acute situation. He has to go to the emergency room, and we're going to end up paying for it, one way or the other. So, Medicaid expansion is definitely something we need to really pay some attention to. I'm not sure what we can do on an individual basis to try to drive that point home to the legislature, but something that I think we really need to give some consideration to. And anybody that's out there that, feels the same way, you're more than welcome to join us, as the Franklin County Democrats, because, our membership is dependent upon the community. So, and if that will help you by being able to help us drive those, policies forward, that would be great. Something else that's come up is, the gun laws have been changed by the Republican Party, or legislature, I guess, don't want to call it the party. And that seems to be a hot button of sorts with a lot of people. And I'm not a gun owner, but I know a lot of people that are. And it seems to me that the gun violence that we're seeing nationally has got to be a concern. What are your feelings on the gun laws and the gun lobby, as it were?
Well, the majority of Tennesseans support measures for common sense gun safety legislation. Unfortunately, the legislature has failed to act on any of the things that would be effective in beginning the process of reducing firearms deaths. It's important to know that the number one cause of death of children is firearms. That's from suicide, that's from homicide, and that's from accidental death related to firearms. That's a terrible, tragic fact.
Right.
And when we've had losses in our own community, the Waffle House shooting in Nashville a few years ago, and then the Covenant School shooting that was so tragic, and then we had a special session called, and basically no significant legislation came out of that special session. We've got to take some action to change it. I mean, people are dying.
Absolutely.
I'm like a lot of Southerners, I grew up being taught how to hunt. So I've used guns for that purpose. And this is not about taking away anybody's
guns,
hunting rifles, but you don't use an AK-47 for that.
No.
And we also, I'm actually a survivor of an aggravated robbery where I had a handgun held to my head. And I know how much trauma that was in my own life as an adult to deal with that kind of event. To think about children being faced not just with the actual events, but all the safety training that they have to go through now, where they have to think about being in a position where they could be killed.
Yeah.
It's what kind of culture is that? Why are we allowing this to go on? I think there are a number of ways to start to address the problem. There's majority support in Tennessee for red flag laws, which involves temporarily taking away guns from those who have demonstrated that they are a risk to themselves or others, with due process guarantees in that process of removing those guns. We've gone to a situation where you used to have to learn how to use a gun and store it safely in order to have a permit to own a gun. And we got rid of all of those requirements. So you've got to know how to drive a car and pass a test before you can drive a car, but you don't have to do anything like that for a gun. And I think most people understand that there needs to be some knowledge that goes along with, there's
gun
responsibility that goes along with gun ownership.
One of the things that I keep hearing whenever we have one of those shootings, regardless of where it is, that, and particularly when there's a young person involved, that the parents, they seem to miss the clues that there's a problem and they don't report it, where, a red flag law might be an important means of removing that situation. So, I mean, it's an issue that the parents have to be aware of, and maybe they're ashamed of saying, I don't want to say that my son or daughter is a little bit off the tracks and potentially could be a risk for gun ownership. And as a result, we have a Sandy Hook or Columbine rather, situation where I don't know that the parents could have stopped it, but it seems like that there is an element of that needs to be a part of the whole gun ownership discussion.
Yeah, well, there's nowhere to go for help right now.
That's interesting.
Assuming they did have a concern, they could report it, but the police couldn't do anything about it because we don't have any laws that authorize action until the gun has been used. That's why we need red flag laws.
Right. Well, to sort of wrap things up here, one of the, I guess, real hot button issues coming up is the Roe v. Wade and elimination of abortion rights. I think we're going to be seeing that as a political argument right up until the actual election in November, whether it be on a state level or on a national level. What are your thoughts on it? Particularly as having been an attorney, is there anything about that whole situation that sticks out at you?
Well, I think it's insulting that women have had a right taken away from them especially after 50 years of it being the law of the land, and it assumes that state legislators know more about what a woman should do with her body than that woman knows what to do with her body. I think autonomy over her own body should be returned to women as it relates to abortion, as it relates to contraception, as it relates to IVF. And again, that's an area where the majority of Tennesseans are pro-choice, and the legislature is not.
Right. And
you're having this body of supermajority male legislators dictating the decisions for women, and I think it's ridiculous. And I think it will have detrimental effects in Tennessee. There are already reductions in the number of people who are applying for medical training, particularly as OBGYNs. They will not be able to get the training that they need to provide health care, a full range of health care to women in the state of Tennessee or any other state where these total bans on abortion occur. And I think we may even have a loss of applicants for colleges and universities that are not necessarily people coming for medical training. We may have a loss of a brain drain, basically, of people who don't want to reside in a state where they can't get proper medical care. We are hearing so many stories about women who had wanted pregnancies, but something went wrong and they need health care, and that health care, part of that health care includes abortion services, which they can't receive until the doctor's comfortable that they're about to die as a result, or lose some major function as a result of their condition. And that's being litigated. Tennessee's law is so vague, it's being litigated now. In the meantime, you've got doctors who don't want to risk losing their licenses and don't want to risk criminal
criminal prosecution. So you have women who are at risk
Sure.
of very significant injury or death. Another way of looking at this issue, I heard someone talking about recently. This was a woman about my age, who's grandmother age, and she and her husband had been very excited because her daughter and her new son-in-law had relocated to Tennessee and bought a place that was nearby, so that the potential grandparents, could be involved in the raising of any children who came along. However, the daughter has some pre-existing health conditions that will make it difficult for her to become pregnant, and may make it difficult for her to maintain a pregnancy. So they've decided they're going to have to leave Tennessee in order to become parents. And that means there will be no grandparents down the street.
Right.
They'll be in another state from where those children are being raised. So day-to-day consequences of this kind of legislation are occurring.
It becomes very personal very quickly.
Right.
My granddaughter just got married and wants to start a family, and hopefully, she'll be able to do that. But, now when they've got these, laws about IVF, in vitro fertilization, you can't do that. It's like, I'm sorry, where is the wisdom in that? So, how many legislatures or members of a legislature have a family member that may have had to use in vitro fertilization to be able to become grandparents? So I don't know that, the people that are making these decisions realize that there is a personal impact on the people that all they want to do is start a family, which is pretty much an American right. So, the whole Roe v. Wade is going to be discussed for a long, long time, I believe. So we're about out of time here. So I just wanted to, thank you very much for coming. It's been a very interesting discussion. Found out a lot about you, and that's very nice. Always good to know who our local candidates are. So I hope everybody gets out and supports you in both the preliminary, primary election on August 1st, and then again on November 5th on the actual election day, as it were. And again, for anybody that's interested, the Franklin County Democratic Party meets at the small annex, or the small office at the annex, on the fourth Tuesday of every month at 6. Rosemary's been there frequently. I'm becoming a little bit more involved, so anybody that would like to join us, please feel free. And if you want to see Gloria Johnson on the 7th of July, that's wonderful also, from 3 to 5 p.m. So that's all we have for today. Again, thank you very, very much. Good luck with Tilly. And I hope you keep her. I'd like to see her at some of our other meetings, but I know what the job is. So you have a wonderful afternoon. Try to stay cool, and we'll talk again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob.